The clay fell softer, begin to be forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. The caretaker moved away a few paces and put on his hat. Had enough of it. The mourners took heart of grace, one by one, covering themselves without show. Mr. Bloom put on his hat and saw the portly figure make its way deftly through the maze of graves, quietly, sure of his ground. He traversed the dismal fields. Heinz jotting down something in his notebook. Ah, the names. But he knows them. No, coming to me. I'm just taking the names, Heinz said below his breath. What is your Christian name? I'm not sure. L, Mr. Bloom said. Leopold. And you might put down McCoy's name too. He asked me to. Charlie, Heinz said, writing. I know he was on the Freeman once. So he was before he got the job in the morgue under Louis Byrne. Good idea. A post-mortem for doctors. Find out what they imagine they know. He died of a Tuesday, got the run, levanted with the cash of a few ads. Charlie, you're my darling. That was why he asked me to. Oh well, does no harm. I saw to that, McCoy. Thanks, old chap, much obliged. Leave him under an obligation, costs nothing. And tell us, Heinz said, do you know that fellow was over there in the... He looked around. Mackintosh? Yes, I saw him, Mr. Bloom said. Where is he now? Mackintosh, Heinz said, scribbling. I don't know who he is. Is that his name? He moved away, looking about him. No, Mr. Bloom began, turning and stopping. I say, Heinz. Didn't hear. What? Where has he disappeared to? Not a sign. Well, of all that, has anybody here seen K-E-L-L become invisible? Good Lord, what became of him? A seventh grave digger came beside Mr. Bloom to take up an idle spade. Oh, excuse me. He stepped aside nimbly. Clay, brown, damp, began to be seen in the hole. It rose, nearly over. A mound of damp clods rose more, rose, and the grave diggers rested their spades, all uncovered again for a few instants. The boy propped his wreath against a corner, the brother-in-law his on a lump. The grave diggers put on their caps and carried their earthy spades towards the barrow, then knocked the blades lightly on the turf, clean. One bent to pluck from the haft a long tuft of grass. One, leaving his mates, walked slowly on with shouldered weapon, its blade blue glancing. Silently at the grave head, another coiled the coffin band, his navel cord. The brother-in-law, turning away, placed something in his free hand. Thanks in silence. Sorry, sir, trouble. Head shake. I know that, for yourselves just. The mourners moved away slowly without aim by devious paths, staying at whiles to read a name on a tomb. Let us go round by the chief's grave, Heinz said. We have time. Let us, Mr. Power said. They turned to the right, following their slow thoughts. Withal, Mr. Power's blank voice spoke. Some say he's not in that grave at all, that the coffin was filled with stones, that one day he will come again. Heinz shook his head. Parnell will never come again, he said. He's there, all that was mortal of him. Peace to his ashes. Mr. Bloom walked unheeded along his grove by saddened angels, crosses, broken pillars, family vaults, stone hopes praying with upcast eyes, old Ireland's hearts and hands. More sensible to spend the money on some charity for the living. Pray for the repose of the soul of, does anybody really? Plant him and have done with him, like down a coal chute, then lump them together to save time, All Souls' Day. 27th I'll be at his grave, 10 shillings for the gardener. He keeps it free of weeds. Old man himself, bent down double with his shears clipping, near death's door. Who passed away? Who departed this life, as if they did it of their own accord? Get the shove, all of them. Who kicked the bucket? More interesting if they told you what they were. So-and-so, were you right? I travelled for Cork Lino, I paid 5 shillings in the pound. Or a woman's with her saucepan, I cooked good Irish stew. Eulogy in a country churchyard. It ought to be that poem of, whose is it? Wordsworth or Thomas Campbell? Entered into rest, the Protestants put it. Old Dr. Murrins, the great physician, called him home. Well, it's God's acre for them. Nice country residence, newly plastered and painted. Ideal spot to have a quiet smoke and read the church Times. Marriage ads, they never try to beautify. Rusty wreaths hung on knobs, garlands of bronze foil, better value for the money. Still, the flowers are more poetical. The other gets rather tiresome, never withering, expresses nothing, immortalis. A bird sat tamely perched on a poplar branch, like stuffed, like the wedding present Alderman Hooper gave us. Who? Not a budge out of him. Knows there are no catapults to let fly at him. Dead animal, even sadder. Silly Millie, burying the little dead bird in the kitchen matchbox, a daisy chain, and bits of broken chainies on the grave.